The Scales of Justice, a confrontation in Silverstone. Silverstone, a metropolis that sprawled like a mosaic of cultures and ambitions, harbored within its depths a wound that bled in silence: racial inequality. The city, a melting pot of ethnicities and histories, was also a minefield where prejudice and injustice manifested in acts of oppression and discrimination. At the heart of this storm stood the imposing figure of Judge Amina Carter, a black woman whose presence in the courtroom was a beacon of hope for many and a target of scrutiny for others. Amina, with her short hair and piercing gaze, was a figure of determination. Her journey to the bench had been arduous, marked by challenges and barriers that she had overcome with resilience and an unwavering faith in justice. She knew that her role there was not just to apply the law, but also to fight for those who were marginalized and silenced. Her own story, marked by the struggle against prejudice and discrimination, had taught her that justice was a constant pursuit, a battle that demanded courage and perseverance. In her office, a sanctuary of order amidst the chaos of the city, Amina reviewed the documents of Malik Johnson's case. Each report, each testimony, was a reminder of the fragility of justice and the need to protect it. Malik, a 17-year-old black youth, was a brilliant student with a promising future. But his life had been abruptly interrupted by a police stop that had left him traumatized and disillusioned. He was a talented athlete, a passionate musician, and an active member of his community. His dreams of becoming a doctor had been jeopardized by an act of violence that had shaken his faith in the system. Amina felt the weight of expectation on her shoulders. She knew that Malik's trial was not just about an individual case, but about the very essence of justice. The city was watching, waiting to see if the scales of justice would finally be balanced. The media was present in full force, ready to record every detail of the trial, every word uttered, every emotion expressed. The door to the courtroom burst open, interrupting Amina's train of thought. Officer Jack Thompson, a white man of imposing physique and challenging gaze, entered unannounced. Jack, a veteran of the police force, was known for his hardline approach and his lack of tolerance for any form of resistance. His reputation for having confrontations with the black community preceded him, and his presence in the courtroom was like a harbinger of a storm. He was a man of few words, but his actions spoke louder than any speech. "Judge Carter," Jack said, his voice resonating with a calculated arrogance. "We need to have a conversation about today's case." Amina raised her gaze, her dark eyes meeting Jack's. "Officer Thompson, this court is a place of order and respect. Any discussion must be done appropriately." Jack gave a sarcastic smile. "Do you really believe you can be impartial in this case? You're not one of us." Amina felt a tightness in her chest. Jack's words were an attempt to undermine her authority and integrity. "My skin color does not define my ability to judge," Amina replied, her voice as firm as a rock. "Your prejudice, however, is evident." Jack laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You're a judge, but you're also an activist. That's not justice." "Justice is for everyone, Officer Thompson, not just for those who look like you," Amina replied, her gaze defiant. She remembered her own struggle to get where she was, the difficulties she had faced because of her skin color. She knew she could not allow Jack's prejudice to prevent her from doing her job. The confrontation in the courtroom was just a sample of the conflict that was to come. The tension between Amina and Jack was palpable, a battle between justice and prejudice that was about to unfold. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick, charged with emotions and expectations. The day of the trial arrived with an atmosphere charged with electricity. The courtroom was packed, with people of all backgrounds and beliefs gathered to witness the unfolding of the story. Outside, protesters clamored for justice, their voices echoing through the corridors of the building. They held signs with pictures of Malik and phrases demanding an end to police brutality and racial discrimination. The media was present in full force, ready to record every detail of the trial, every word spoken, every emotion expressed. Amina entered the courtroom, her presence imposing and serene. She sat in her chair, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. The weight of responsibility was palpable, but she was determined not to be intimidated. She knew that the future of the city, and perhaps even the country, depended on her decision. Malik's lawyer, Eric Sanders, a man with a soft voice but a steely determination, made his opening statement, describing the brutal police stop and the devastating impact it had on his client's life. He painted a picture of an innocent young man who had been a victim of an unjust system. He highlighted Malik's record as an exemplary student, a talented athlete, and an active member of his community. He spoke of Malik's dreams, his aspirations, and his plans for the future, which had been jeopardized by a senseless act of violence. Jack's lawyer, Robert, a man with a reputation for being shrewd and ruthless, responded with a defense that seemed to have been taken from a manual of prejudice. He portrayed Malik as a delinquent and justified the police's actions as necessary to maintain order. He tried to disqualify Malik's testimony, claiming that he was a liar and a potential criminal. He used terms like thug and threat to describe Malik, trying to instill fear and distrust in the jury. Sarah, Malik's best friend, was the first witness to testify. Her eyes were filled with tears as she described the day Malik was stopped by the police. "He was just walking home," she said, her voice trembling. "He never did anything wrong." She described how Malik had been approached by Jack and his colleagues, how they had thrown him to the ground and assaulted him for no reason. She also told how Malik had cried for help, but no one had done anything to help him. Robert, with a condescending smile, began to question Sarah's credibility, insinuating that she might be exaggerating the situation. "Are you sure you're not protecting your friend?" he asked, with an accusatory tone. He tried to insinuate that Sarah and Malik had a romantic relationship and that she was being influenced by her feelings. He also tried to disqualify Sarah's testimony, claiming that she was an emotional young woman and not a reliable witness. Amina intervened, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "This court is not a place for insinuations and prejudices. Witnesses must be treated with respect." She looked at Robert with a gaze that made him flinch. She knew that she could not allow Robert to disqualify Sarah's testimony based on prejudice and stereotypes. She had seen how prejudice and discrimination could distort the truth and how they could destroy lives. Sarah continued her testimony, describing the impact that the police stop had on Malik. She told how he had become withdrawn and distrustful, how his dreams had been shattered. Her words touched the hearts of many in the courtroom, and her honesty and vulnerability made her a powerful witness. She described how Malik had lost the joy of living, how he had become a shadow of his former self. The trial continued, with each testimony revealing a new layer of the truth. But the real turning point came when a previously unseen security video was discovered. The video showed the police stop in shocking detail, revealing the brutality and abuse of power that had been denied by the police. The images were clear and undeniable, showing Jack and his colleagues assaulting Malik without any provocation. The video showed how Jack had used excessive force and how he had ignored Malik's pleas to stop. Amina watched the video in silence, her anger and indignation growing with each passing second. The images were irrefutable proof of the injustice that had been committed. She knew that she could not ignore the truth. She remembered her own struggle against prejudice and discrimination and felt a deep connection with Malik. When the video was shown in the courtroom, a heavy silence hung in the air. The truth had been revealed, and the police's narrative had been exposed. The video was a devastating blow to Jack's defense and a cry for justice for Malik. The public's reaction was immediate, with many murmuring in shock and outrage. Some wept, others were angry, but all were united in their search for the truth. The next day, Officer Ryan Adams, a colleague of Jack's, was called to the witness stand. Ryan, a man with a troubled conscience, had struggled with his loyalty to the police and his obligation to tell the truth. He had witnessed Malik's stop and had been tormented by guilt ever since. He knew that he had done the wrong thing by not intervening and that he needed to do the right thing now. "I saw what happened," Ryan said, his voice trembling. "The stop was unnecessary and brutal. Malik didn't deserve that." He described how Jack had used excessive force and how he had ignored Malik's pleas to stop. He also revealed that Jack had made racist comments about Malik before the stop. He told how Jack had called Malik a thug and a threat, and how he had said that Malik deserved what happened to him. Ryan's testimony was an act of courage and a blow to Jack's defense. He had broken the police's code of silence and revealed the truth about what had happened. He also revealed that he had been pressured by his superiors not to testify and that he had received veiled threats. He told how his colleagues had said that he was a traitor and that he was putting his career at risk. The trial was coming to an end, and the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Amina felt the weight of the decision she was about to make. She knew that her verdict would have a profound impact on the city and on the lives of everyone involved. She had spent sleepless nights, reviewing the evidence and weighing the consequences of each decision. She wondered if she was doing the right thing, if she was being fair and impartial. On the day of the verdict, Amina entered the courtroom with an unwavering determination. She sat in her chair and looked at the jury. "This court was created to seek truth and justice," she said, her voice resonating with authority. "We cannot allow prejudice and discrimination to dictate our decisions." She spoke about the importance of equality before the law and about the need to protect the rights of all citizens. Amina announced the verdict. Jack Thompson was guilty of abuse of power and excessive use of force. A heavy silence hung in the air, followed by an explosion of applause and cheers. Justice had been done. The people in the courtroom embraced, wept, and celebrated the victory of justice. The verdict in Malik's case triggered a wave of change in Silverstone. The community united in support of Malik and in opposition to police brutality. The streets were taken over by peaceful protests, and the voices of change echoed throughout the city. The protesters demanded reforms in the police and an end to racial discrimination. They also called for the police officers responsible for acts of brutality to be held accountable for their actions. Amina became a symbol of hope and justice, proof that change was possible. She knew that the fight was far from over, but she was determined to continue fighting for a more just and equitable world. She began to receive letters and messages from people all over the country, praising her courage and her determination. She also became a target of criticism and threats, but she did not let herself be intimidated. The story of Malik and Amina became a beacon of hope for many other communities struggling against injustice. The Silverstone case showed that truth and justice can prevail, even in the face of oppression and prejudice. Malik's trial was a turning point in the fight for racial justice, and his legacy continued to inspire future generations. Amina continued to serve as a judge, her determination and integrity guiding her decisions. She knew that her work was essential to ensure that everyone had a fair chance in life. She became an advocate for criminal justice reform and a voice for the marginalized. She worked tirelessly to create a more just and equitable system of justice for all. The struggle for justice and equality is an ongoing journey. But the story of Silverstone shows us that change is possible when people unite and fight for what they believe in. The scales of justice may be heavy, but when truth and courage unite, they can be balanced. And so the struggle continues, with the hope that one day justice will prevail for all. Amina Carter, the judge who became a symbol of the fight against injustice, continues to inspire future generations to fight for a more just and equitable world. And the story of Malik Johnson, the young man who dared to challenge the system, remains as a reminder that truth and courage can change the world. The scales of justice are in motion, and the struggle continues. The city of Silverstone, once divided by prejudice and discrimination, now united in search of a better future, a future where justice and equality were a reality for all.